it is most unusual that once she runs away from the employ of the diplomatic officer, she is then an illegal immigrant.
Absolutely.
And as an illegal immigrant in the US, instead of being charged for that, she is being given a visa and her family is being invited with a visa.
Now, Mr. Volker,
this is most unusual, you know.
Don't you understand what the conspiracy angle here is all about? This is exactly what people feel results into what we call a conspiracy.
Yes, but I would like to also say
I understand what you're saying, but it's wrong. Yes, Mr. Volker.
Let me tell Lord Desai.
So first off, the woman,
both Veena Sikri and I,
the maid is viewed as a victim. And so, as a victim, under our laws and systems, she should be protected.
But that's the point, Mr. Volker. Mr. Parthasarthy, just give me 10 seconds.
Looked at before.
Just give me 30 seconds. Mr. Walker,
you know the diplomatic officer. You have to consult the Indian government on that. That's the first premise of the Vienna Convention, and that was not done. Even the Foreign Secretary was in Washington, and the Foreign Secretary was not consulted about this. Secondly, in keeping with India's friendship with the US, the importance of the relationship, the strategic partnership, all this merits a complete bilateral discussion before this is thrown into the public domain and the diplomatic officer is treated like an ordinary criminal. I think this is what has
and
really...
Ms. Sikri and Mahroof, even if we were to talk purely on the basis of what is the written word, that is the Vienna Convention. Article 47 is the article that you were referring to in previous shows also. Would you like to elaborate on that?
Yes.
What does that actually mean?
Yes, Article 47 of the 1963 Convention says quite clearly that members of the private staff of consular officers and of consular employees shall, if they do not carry on any other gainful occupation in the receiving state, be exempt from the obligations referred to above, which includes work permits or laws and regulations of the receiving state concerning the employment of foreign labor. So actually, as long as she was there and in keeping with the application made, these laws are not applicable to the domestic assistance of consular and diplomatic employees. Consular employees fall very much under this category.
Yes, Mr. Parthasarthy.
Between consular and diplomatic employees.
Veena Sikri is spot on. Veena is spot on. Both Veena and I were together in the United States. This is a charade. Every State Department official knows precisely what we pay, what every other developing country pays. They also know that enforcing it is hazardous because it runs contrary to Article 47 of the Vienna Convention. And then they start all this tamasha of being great human rights people. That human rights organizations. But here I come back to the basic. I think it is important that the chief conspirator in this, Preet Bharara, should have an Interpol notice on him. Formally with the State Department, he should be charged, and very clearly they should be told, okay, you guys, you are not responsible, as the ambassador says, then let the police and the other detention authorities give a formal apology. As for Lord Desai's argument, I don't think he served in Washington. Veena and I have. We know what the score is when it comes to developing countries.
Okay. Absolutely. In fact, Mahroof, if I could just take you through the statement of the Manhattan US Attorney, Mr. Preet Bharara. He gives a point-by-point rebuttal. It almost appears, Mahroof, as if he is trying to defend his own decision, or give out a statement defending his own self, rather than this particular case. On 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 6 counts where he is trying to defend the decision that he has taken. Do you think it's a fair defense? I mean, you must have gone through the defense that he has made.
Well, yes. I think there are 2 issues that I want to bring out, other than what the 2 distinguished High Commissioners, Mr. Parthasarthy and Madam Sikri, have brought out. First is that as far as Mr. Preet Bharara is concerned, the word is out that he has his personal ambitions which are going far in excess of the role that he is currently playing. And those who know that he is targeting even higher office, and Indians are being made a scapegoat by him. The second point that I want to make is that if you read the American response to the Vienna Conventions, they are in fact far in excess of what the Vienna Conventions offer, which clearly says that while America is a signatory to the Vienna Conventions, it is also saying in the same word and letter and spirit that our laws are superior to that international convention that we are signatories to. And you can see this in two cases. Recently, the Raymond Davis case in Pakistan, the distinguished American ambassador was just saying that, you know, if she was a consular employee, then the terms and engagement are different than a diplomatic employee. I would like to ask you, sir, why was Raymond Davis first a consular employee and then quickly given a status of a diplomatic status so that he could be extradited from Pakistan under diplomatic immunity? There are two separate statements that have come out from your State Department which have changed his status over a period of 48 hours. And look at more specifically that America has one set of rules for itself, another set of rules for a lot of other countries it deals with.
Right.
Am I wrong in stating that a number of third world countries that have missions in America
Mr. Volker,
can't even afford to pay for their mission offices? How are they going to pay for staff? America is allowing them to be present out there because some would argue that they help America garner votes at the United Nations. Now, these are very blunt questions, sir. Can I get your answers, please?
Mr. Volker.
Right. So I think the case of Ray Davis that you raised, I think that he was accused of a crime in Pakistan. He acted as the U.S. saw it in self-defense, and the U.S. did, as you say, quickly move him to a different status and out of the country. And there was a great deal of lack of confidence in the fairness of the execution of Pakistani law. And I think that's a fact, and I don't dispute what you're saying. I think another case that's worth remembering is the case of the IMF Managing Director, Dominique Strauss-Kahn, who was accused of raping a woman in a hotel. And he was arrested by authorities in New York because that was not in any way connected to his official duties. That was settled out of court, but he also was disgraced by those actions. When it comes to the case of the Indian Deputy Consul General in New York, let me just say that I think there are four issues that we have to keep in mind. One of them is probably the most important, which is her treatment as an individual. And I think that that was not handled well at all. The second issue is the accusation of a crime being committed. We don't know the facts. We know some of the facts. We don't know all of them. And it's important that the investigation of a crime be carried out. The third issue is the legal status of diplomatic immunity, consular immunity, following labor laws in the U.S., or perhaps lying on a visa application. These are legal issues between governments that need to be sorted out. There's differing interpretations there. We could also have done a far better job in managing those issues before it blew up. And then the fourth issue, and I believe perhaps the long-term important one, as many of your other guests have said too, this is something that should have been brought up between the foreign ministries of the two countries. It should have been worked cooperatively with the with the Indian embassy in Washington, with the Indian mission in New York, in order to handle this as two responsible countries rather than let it get out of hand in this way.
Mr. Walker,
so those four issues need to be separated but understood.
Mr. Walker, your point's taken. The thing is, this is your point of view. When will the US government acknowledge this? And why hasn't it acknowledged it yet? The second question, right. why did Mr. Preet Bharara jump the gun? Why didn't he listen to both sides of the stories before he formed his opinion? Thirdly, why did he oversee a Delhi High Court injunction and also a non-bailable warrant issued against Sangeeta Richard? And why did he mock the Indian judicial system? Another question. Why, if the maid was being ill-treated, why did she write a letter and pen it down that she was very, very happy, her work hours were very, very comfortable, she was being treated like a house person or a family, not as a domestic help? If she has made all these notings in March or in April, in fact, 1 month before she has absconded. So how could things change suddenly? Why has the US prosecutor or the US attorney not bothered to go through the facts before he's mocked the Indian judicial system and also broken laws?
Right. So I think the first thing is that the US government
I want to ask the
ambassador,
if I may ask the ambassador one more query. One more query to the ambassador. Does he think it is befitting of a US attorney to pass derogatory comments about the judicial system of a fellow democracy, which President Obama has said is the largest democracy in the world? Don't you think you should rein in these guys?
Right. Yeah, well, let's go through. There are several questions that were just raised. So first off, the U.S. government as a government will be very slow to react and issue any kind of statement or apology. As another guest indicated earlier, there's a desire on the part of government officials to make sure whatever they say is absolutely based on fact, absolutely accurate, no risk of getting it wrong. And it takes a very long time to really get to the bottom of anything. So they'll be very slow. We've seen in the case of U.S. ambassador and others, diplomats killed in Benghazi, no one has yet been held accountable for that. No, there's been no clear investigation of that inside the U.S. government even, let alone in a case such as this that's only a week or so old. So it's just going to be very slow. Secondly, I absolutely agree. I think that there should have been more investigation and more cooperation between India and the United States before it came to the point of an arrest like this. The reason that I suppose, and this is my judgment, I don't know if this is a fact, but the reason that I suppose that that didn't happen was because the maid herself was viewed as a victim and therefore needing protection, and therefore an investigation should proceed on that basis rather than accepting the word of the people she's accusing of having treated her unfairly. I think that is just a bias. I shouldn't say bias even, but it's a fact in our system.
Meghnad Desai.
Victims are often powerless, and we try to give a favorable
but that's the fallacy of all of it, because she was not the victim in this. The only victim, like our Foreign Affairs Foreign Ministry spokesperson said. Like Syed Akbaruddin, our spokesperson of the Ministry of External Affairs, said, the only victim in this case is Dr. Devyani Khobragade. There is nobody else. And that is the truth. And that's not been pursued and that's been overlooked. Lord Meghnad Desai, you've been silent for a bit. Yes, sir.
Well, may I say that may be the truth,
another victim,
and I actually think it might be the truth, but that's what needs to be investigated and found out, that we jumped the gun by acting as we did.
And complain about ill treatment. That is why she is with a human rights NGO and they have taken up her case. And because she has complained and her complaint has been found to be valid, that the US District Attorney has filed the case. He doesn't do it for fun, nor does he do it for
God's sake, Dr. Lord Desai,
he's an officer of the law.
What are you talking?
Lord Meghnad Desai
found to be guilty.
Violation of the law.
Did the NGO speak to the officer concerned? Did the NGO see the letter written by the servant saying she is totally happy?
But she wrote it when she was in employment. Obviously she had to write it. She
has written it in her personal diary, Lord Meghnad Desai. She has not written it at gunpoint. She has not written it at gunpoint.
She was a slave worker.
She has not written it at gunpoint.
She was being paid slave wages.
There has been no proof that's been produced to prove this claim, but there is proof, handwritten proof, that she has said that she is happy.
You only care about the rights of one Indian citizen.
Just a minute. Dr. Desai, Lord Desai, you are calling it slave wages. Just a minute. Lord Desai, you've called it slave wages. How much do you pay your servants? How much do you pay your drivers? In India, she gets a better wage than that. So don't try and run down somebody just because you have the title of a lord.
I cannot afford a full-time servant in London. I'm not that rich.
No, Lord Desai, it is not 30,000 rupees a month. 30,000 rupees a month plus a few $100 in cash is not slave wages.
How much do you pay an Indian servant in India?
Anand, just a moment. Ms. Sikri wants to come in.
If you ask me a question about the wages I pay, let me answer it.
Completely looked over.
Don't interrupt.
By the fact of we are arguing about how much money she got and how much money Lord Meghnad.
I am answering his question, or I'm not.
But the point is
if
that
I'm not answering the question, thank you very much. I'll go home to bed.
Yeah, Ms. Sikri, just wait a minute. Yes, Lord Desai, complete. Yes, and then we'll go to Ms. Sikri. Yes, Lord Meghnad Desai. Yes, Lord Meghnad Desai, complete.
I would suggest the next time Lord Desai takes an Indian taxi, he pays the same fees that he pays in London.
Lord Meghnad Desai, complete.
What rubbish he's talking.
Complete, sir, complete. Sir, make your point. Lord Desai, make your point.
Thank you very much.
Lord Desai, make your point. Lord Meghnad Desai, do make your point.
I was just saying that I pay my maid servant in London £12 an hour she only comes for 5 hours a week because I can't afford a maid servant full time. Indian diplomats, when they go abroad, should realize they can't afford a full-time maid servant if they're going to pay decent wages. Why don't they learn to live like other Americans who don't have full-time maid servants? Why do we pretend that you can have a Delhi standard?
Because you have never been a diplomat, Lord Desai. You have risen to lordship. A diplomat has to entertain. A diplomat has to look after guests. He has to look after delegations. So
I never had to lie.
So, and incidentally, what we have done is within the realms of the Vienna Convention on Consular Relations. So get off in defending your friends across the Atlantic.